After Dunkirk, we needed to replenish all of our tanks. We left all our tanks in Dunkirk, in Normandy. So what we had to do was replenish, retrain, and we tried an amphibious landing at Dieppe towards the end of 1942, and that was a disaster. And it was decided that what we would need for the next time, the big one, D-Day, is that we needed to get tanks onto the beach immediately to support the infantry. And so this is where the idea of duplex drive tanks, duplex drive because they operate on land and in the water, and this was a really new concept. And one of our regiments, 13th, 18th Royal Hussars, were selected to be one of these regiments to train on the duplex drive tanks.
So describe a duplex drive tank.
Well, it's an ordinary tank. Most of the training was done on Valentine tanks, but some weeks before D-Day they were issued with Shermans, which had always been the plan. They just weren't sure whether they could get enough produced in time, which they did. And it simply is a normal Sherman tank. It has propellers fitted on the back, and it has a canvas screen which normally would be collapsed but is inflated, which covers the top of the tank, and then it deploys in the water, disengages its tracks, engages its propellers, and swims towards the shore.
So you're talking about people plunging off a ship a couple of miles out to sea in a tank to get to shore. What was facing them?
Well, the weather is the first thing. The plan on D-Day had been to deploy 5 miles from shore, but decisions were taken locally at various times to change that. And in terms of our regiment, the 13th, 18th Hussars, they were taken closer, and they were taken about 2.5 miles because the weather was so bad and the sea was so rough. So they deployed into the sea 2.5 miles from shore, and it took them over an hour. The normal speed was about 4 miles an hour, which is kind of a brisk walking pace. And of course, with the conditions being so bad, it took them a little longer. So they're in the water for just over an hour. And fortunately for the 13th, 18th Hussars, all but 2 of the tanks, they deployed 36, and 34 of them actually got to the beach.
So they were facing the sea, they were facing the weather, and what were they facing on the beach?
Well, they were facing enemy fire. Now, one of the great things about D-Day was that the deception plan had been so successful that it wasn't until these tanks had actually deployed and were in the sea that the Germans woke up to the fact that they were being attacked, and that all played in their favour. What also was a great advantage for our lads who were deploying to Sword Beach, which was on the far left of the assault as they looked at it, was that the British airborne assault, which had taken place the previous night, had been hugely successful, which meant that the Germans couldn't get reinforcements up to that part of the beach.
And how did the soldiers describe it?
Well, for every tank and every soldier, there's a different story, really. One chap whose account we draw on quite heavily, Patrick Hennessy, talks about having just deployed into the sea, glancing over to another landing craft and seeing a tank from their regiment come out, didn't get away in time from the landing craft, which then bumped it, and the tank went straight down to the bottom with the loss of all the crew except the commander, who managed to get out. And again, once they got to the beach, some could deploy straight up the beach. Our particular chap had to wait for a minefield to be cleared, so he just gave covering fire as artillery to the infantry until they could do that and get moving.
Why is it important we mark this anniversary?
Well, there's a number of reasons, really. We're starting to lose this generation of people. We do very much hope to have a D-Day veteran with us tomorrow for our talk. But we're now capturing their stories. It's very important that we get the stories of these men. These are ordinary men. There's a quote that always brings to mind from an American admiral called William Halsey, who says there are no extraordinary men, only extraordinary circumstances that ordinary men have to deal with. And I think that sums up D-Day absolutely. These are ordinary men dealing with extraordinary circumstances, and the sheer bravery of sitting in a tank and being pitched into the sea is absolutely remarkable.